Underpowered AC Milan fall to 8th place after loss to Napoli. Columbus Crew on the ropes in round 1 of the MLS Cup playoffs. And can the Ballon d'Or get any messier? That and more here on Wednesday's Morning Kick Around. Hello and welcome into Morning Kick Around, where we cover the world's favorite game from everyone's favorite country, coming to you live each Monday, Wednesday, Friday. I'm Robert Kerr, happy to be joined by the host of SiriusXM's FC's Winalda Talks Football and Best Sock Show, Mr. Jason Davis.
Thank you. It's such a pleasure to be here once again to talk about our beautiful game from our beautiful country.
T-minus 6 days until we are free of political advertising. But we're on the eve of Halloween. How you feeling about all that?
The eve of Halloween. I forgot that Halloween was coming. When you put a weekend 4 days or 5 days ahead of Halloween and you've got a toddler or a 3-year-old in my case who doesn't toddle, he runs. You celebrate Halloween on the weekend, and then when it actually comes, like, oh, we got to do this. Where's the costume? What's going on here? Oh, he's gonna come home with a lot of candy. I'm in for that. Let's go. Let's go.
I'm glad that around here in Metro Detroit, Devil's Night not as much of a thing as it used to be. It used to be frightful when I was a child, but
wow, Devil's Night. I don't think I've ever seen one of those. Isn't that an English thing, or wasn't it an English thing?
Devil's Night is the night before Halloween, where for about a generation it was tradition where all the empty buildings got set on fire in the city of Detroit.
Oh my goodness!
That's where like the stories of like RoboCop and what is it, The Crow and all that came from. So
okay, oh, all right. The only Detroit movies I can think. Well, Beverly Hills Cop starts in Detroit but ends up in Beverly Hills. RoboCop, True Romance is a Detroit movie. That's one of my favorites. Okay, continue.
Well, in either way, before we get to today's segments, be sure to tell all your people, your family, your friends, your children, loose acquaintances, co-workers to like and subscribe to Morning Kick Around's YouTube channel.
Yes.
We got to get this ball rolling. We are closing in on 350. We really want to set that goal of 500. That's the next step on the way to 50,000 subscribers.
That's right. The movement starts here. Robert Kerr. The movement starts here. American soccer fans are going to rally around Morning Kick Around.
You can contact the show at mkickaround on X and Instagram, or if emailing's your thing, morningkickaround@gmail.com. All right, we're set. We're ready. Let's kick some balls. Long balls for Wednesday are right now. Long ball number 1, our first touch of the day. Over in Italy, Christian Pulisic too ill to play a full 90 versus Napoli. His AC Milan fall to 8th place after the loss.
Yes, they did. Difficult day for Milan, I think, regardless of whether or not Christian Pulisic started. But you add in the fact they had 2 players suspended, Hernandez and Reinders, both missing for this game. They would have been missing for the Bologna match, but you remember what happened to the Bologna match?
The Bologna mayor ducked the informed Christian Pulisic in Milan.
That's right. The mayor of Bologna was like, we don't want any of that Christian Pulisic. He's too hot right now. Cancel the game. No, there was actual flooding and real bad stuff happening in Bologna, and they weren't able to play that game. But Milan wasn't happy about it. I think because they recognized that the schedule congestion was going to be very difficult for them down the road, but also because of this exact thing, that if there was no game against Bologna, then the suspension for 2 important players was going to carry over to the Napoli game at the San Siro. And then Pulisic comes down with some sort of flu, a flu that didn't keep him from being on the bench. He did play in the game, but just did keep him from starting. And then Rafael Leao was benched, flat out benched by Paulo Fonseca, who is absolutely under immense pressure right now. And I think it's hard to imagine he lasts much longer in that job. It's not just the 8th place. I think everybody recognizes that this Milan team isn't also ran in the Champions League for the most part. They have Real Madrid next, and that's going to be a feisty Madrid team off the back of what happened in El Clasico. And obviously wanting, I don't know, to prove to the world that Vinicius Jr. should have won the Ballon d'Or. We'll talk about that later. But this is not good. It is not good for AC Milan right now.
Yeah, they were also missing a whole laundry list of players. They also had Gabia, Abraham, Benacer, and Jovic and Florenzi were all out. So
All missing as
really,
well. Yeah.
so a team that was already, a little bit thin, have an absolute dent in their squad. They get kind of a big brothered a little bit by Napoli in this game, especially that Lukaku goal.
I mean,
he just shoulder bumps and sends the Milan defender flying, and has a nice finish.
Yeah, I mean, look, the Lukaku, if that's what he's paid to do, right? He's bounced around because he doesn't seem to be a world-class striker at that level. But if you give him a ball to his feet, between defenders, between center backs, and that was a great pass to split the center backs. It was a fairly narrow window. Yeah, he's going to body somebody, and, he's going to wait for the referee to decide whether it was fair or not. And that looked like a 50-50 to me. You got to be stronger in that moment. Good finish, sets him off. And then Kvara, who, hasn't been, he was excellent during Napoli's Scudetto season, kind of regressed a little bit, or the production dropped. But Antonio Conte, I mean, say what you want about Milan, missing a lot of players, everything going on there. Antonio Conte is doing work right now with Napoli, Robert.
And I want to speak to, I saw some tweets when it came out that Pulisic would be missing this game. There was a lot of fanfare with the Milan versus Napoli game over there. This was kind of an opportunity for Milan to level up and try to get back into the top four sort of argument there in Serie A. But without all the players, there was some tweets I saw out there, Italian tweets of Napoli fans excited and happy and relieved that Pulisic was not in the lineup.
Yes.
And that just goes to show the stature and the place he's elevated his reputation to for Italian fans to, find that as a big reprieve to not have the American in the opposition lineup.
It's unarguable, inarguable, whatever it is, not arguable that Christian Pulisic is Milan's best player right now. I mean, you look at the production, right? Leao's been inconsistent. I don't know that I think it was a smart decision for Fonseca to bench Leao for this game. But the reason he did is because Leao drifts out of games on a pretty regular basis. Like, if you get him in space in his particular moment head up against a defender, okay, he can do something, but he's just kind of absent otherwise. And Pulisic is doing work on the defensive end. He's popping up in different pockets of the field to try to make things happen. He's obviously scoring goals and creating opportunities for teammates. And I think, whether Napoli fans and Italian football fans have sort of leveled Christian Pulisic up in their estimation or not, I don't know. But he plays for Milan. If you're not a Milan fan, you hate Milan, and you don't want their best player on the field if you're going to go play them because it gives them a better chance of beating you.
Milan now in 8th place following the defeat. Moving on to our second touch of the day, long ball number 2 coming stateside. Arguably the biggest surprise of round 1, game 1 of the MLS Cup playoffs. Last night, Columbus Crew lose at home.
Yeah,
the New York Red Bulls.
Yeah, the Red Bulls, they executed their plan, right? They got a goal. It was a little bit, I'm not to say fluky. They won a corner kick and made that count, but there were other opportunities. Don't think, if you didn't watch that game, don't think it was just the set piece opportunity that Columbus converted through Carvalho that helped them win that game. It was also, there was numerous opportunities for Lewis Morgan to bury Columbus, and he just did not convert in front of goal. Emil Forsberg sprang the Scotsman a couple times. But otherwise, it was the defensive plan, right? Columbus was frustrated. They were not able to find the lanes that they're usually able to find. The patterns didn't work for them. I saw this message from Luke. He said, "I just typed out a massive message in support of the Crew, but it disappeared. Probably a good thing, all in, but no, they aren't done." So this is the idea, like, okay, you lose the first game at home. That's not great, but they're definitely capable of going to Red Bull Arena and pulling something out there and then getting a chance to go back home to win the series. I will say that Wilfred Nancy looked incredibly frustrated
Oh
on
yeah.
the sideline if you were watching this game, Robert. And you look at the substitutions. I mean, he made changes in a bid to turn the tide here. He brought off Christian Ramirez in the 59th minute. He brought off Alexandre Martin in the 59th minute, who had a great season for him. He brings on Jackson. He brings on Russell Rowe. A little while later, brings on DeJuan Jones and Dylan Chambos to try to pull things together. It just never clicked. He brought off Moreira, who's a candidate for Defender of the Year in this league. He brought off Rudy Camacho. That was pretty late, but we know how important he's been. So this was definitely like Wilfred frustrated. So if you want to look at it this way, Sandro Schwartz outcoached Wilfred Nancy, and I'm not sure a lot of people had that on their MLS Cup playoffs bingo card.
I meant to take a picture of it. I wish I had, but I was super distracted by the Red Bulls coach's baseball cap. He kept on wearing. I thought he was like in the pit crew for a race team or something. Like it looked like he had a
Well,
Champion Tools branded baseball cap on, and I
that
kept on saying like, is he going to change some tires, change some oil there? But
isn't that one of Red Bull's other interests, that they have a race team or a couple of them, right? I don't know. There's one that's Red Bull, and there's another one that's like an Italian name for them, or for Red Bull or something. I don't actually remember, but yeah, I mean, look, that is. Yeah. Why? Well, why the hat? Yeah, sure. I don't know. Sandro Schwartz.
yeah, I was distracted. I swear he looked like pit crew, but yes, to his credit, I mean the way he set up the team, very solid. Got Cucho Hernandez looked more frustrated than I've really seen him. And I saw a quote before the game, and I hope he's okay now. He says, "When my team loses, I want to die." And so I was a little bit worried that the game didn't go his way last night. So hopefully, he's being taken care of, and he can think of it as a 3-game series. Yeah. So hopefully he's okay. But hopefully they can turn it around for the sake of the crew fans, or at least it'll be interesting to see a third game and see a MLS Cup favorite really in a do or die situation.
Yeah, I mean that it would be the drama that we want out of this round.
Yeah.
Right. And look, I had chalk. I had number 1 and number 2 coming out of the East. That's Miami and Columbus. And right now it's a little dicey. I'm not saying it's done. I do think Columbus can win 2 in a row, one of them being at Red Bull Arena. But this is interesting. Orius Tosh in the comments. Nancy has the right to be hot. His team were piddling around the field. I saw a frustrated team. Right. I saw a team with their arms up on passes and things not going. And I saw a team clearly up against a challenge that the Red Bull were presenting with their press, with their energy, that Columbus either wasn't ready for, which I find hard to believe. They are the defending champions. They are one of the best teams in the league.
One of the best coaches teams.
Or just on that day it wasn't there for them, and it started to kind of snowball a little bit. Obviously, the goals didn't come for the Red Bull to put the game away. It still was 1-0 and within their reach. But the fact that it was only 1-0, the fact that Columbus got blanked at home is a big credit to the Red Bulls. And yes, now Columbus up against it for game 2.
We've had our chuckles about the scheduling and the format of the postseason, but having this first round be a series has obviously bailed Columbus out in this situation, and it probably reduces the ability to have an upset in the first round, because Columbus now has more opportunities at the weekend to get back in it. Game 2 of round 1 of the MLS Cup playoffs kicks off on Friday. We'll move to long ball number 3 here on Wednesday. Looks like you have another.
Well, I do want to throw in, since we are talking playoffs, that Minnesota also scored an away win last night in MLS Cup playoff action in the Western Conference. That game, a different kind of game, but Minnesota decided, we're just going to sit in. We're going to bunker as hard as we've ever bunkered before, and this will be a way to keep a Red Bull team off a RSL team off the board and give ourselves a chance to get a win away from home. So no goals in that game, and Minnesota wins via penalty kick shootout. It really came down to, so there were a couple of misses. Each team missed a shot, I think, in round 3. Michael Boxall and Justin Glad. And then Brian Ojeda clanked off the crossbar with his final penalty kick and allowed Minnesota United to take a big, big win. That, I think, I do believe in Columbus's ability to win at Red Bull Arena. I'm not so sure about RSL in Minnesota. I really think that the Loons have set themselves up to proceed here from this round of the tournament.
Yeah, Minnesota giving themselves the opportunity to clinch a second round berth when they come home to Minnesota. Long ball number 3, Ruud van Nistelrooy looks to be leading Manchester United in their midweek EFL Cup draw against Leicester City, but looks like Sporting Lisbon's Ruben Amorim favored to take the job for the Red Devils.
Yeah, this doesn't seem to have moved a ton since we started hearing the words yesterday that Amorim was the target. I think that there was a story that they were sending a delegation to Lisbon. They had a Portuguese Cup match yesterday. Did Sporting, which I'm pretty sure that they won. I haven't checked the score, but it did look like everything was coming together. But now the Guardian was reporting that their push to appoint Amorim at Old Trafford has been held up by negotiations with Sporting regarding his 30-day notice period. United have informed the Portuguese champions of intent to pay the release clause, which is 10 million euros, and they want him in place for the game against Chelsea on Sunday, but that may not be possible unless there's a breakthrough in the negotiations. So United play 6 games across the next 30 days. They host Everton, the Premier League, on December 1st. There's confidence that they can get Amorim in before this, but there seems to be some sort of contractual glitch, I guess, that is holding this up. I wonder if that will change United's mind. I mean, talking about this move for United, this is rushing to hire the next up and coming, he's 39 years old, I think.
Yep.
The next up and coming young European manager who has done incredible stuff at Sporting, but it is a dramatically more intense environment at Old Trafford and in the Premier League than it is with Sporting Lisbon. And they kind of just did this. I'm not comparing tactics. I'm not comparing mentality or how they coach. Don't really know enough about Amorim to say that he is alike to Eric Ten Hag or not, much like Eric Ten Hag. But this is instead of giving Ruud van Nistelrooy a little bit of a period to figure things out, someone who's been there, somebody who knows the squad, somebody who understands the lay of the land culturally, they're going to turn to somebody who's got to jump right into the deep end. And it could work out. It really could work out. It just seems like a rush job to me.
A little bit of a parallel situation. Eric Ten Hag had led a powerhouse within that domestic league to prominence and getting some good wins and elevated some of the players in his squad. And then Amorim in Portugal, Sporting, one of the powerhouses in that league. I'm sure I don't know too much about the inner workings, but he's found a lot of success in his 4 years there. I think they've won a championship or 2. And I checked, they did win their Portuguese League Cup 3-1 over Nacional, if that's how you say it. So
it's Portuguese. It's Portuguese, so it's probably got something else going on. But I'm not going to correct you.
I appreciate that. But to your point of 30 days, that is, 6 games. That could derail or elevate your season within that time span. So
right. Well, look, unless they're giving him some sort of grace period, right? And again, we can talk about the tactics. Luke's saying that he plays a 3-4-3. He plays with a back 3. He plays fluid soccer. I mean, they want movement, right? It's not just everybody static. And you look at the squad at United, and they do not have a mobile squad. They do not have a squad that screams, hey, this is going to be a perfect fit for Amorim's system. So there's that. And if you're not going to give him a grace period, then what the hell are you doing here? But if you're giving him a grace period, you're sort of accepting the idea that this could get worse for United rather than get better. This is not a move that screams we're trying to salvage this season. We're trying to get into a European place. We're trying to do something to make the fans happy because this is not where United is supposed to be. This is a move that says we're thinking 3 years down the line. And that's interesting to me. I'm not saying it's the wrong decision. I do think you have to think long term, but it just feels odd to do all of this now when you're already foundering, when you don't have the personnel necessary to compete at a higher level, and you're just going to give the keys to the car to a guy who's never driven this track before.
Yeah, there's a whole nother level of pressure, intensity, attention, just cameras, and all the corporate obligations and media obligations. I mean, we saw David Moyes have difficulty with that transition back in the day, coming from a team that didn't necessarily have the spotlight like that, and that could be a difficult transition. And a team in turmoil, like I was saying, Sporting may have their own, internal politics and whatnot, but is it as dire, or shall I say poisonous, as the United locker room could be? I mean, does he have experience trying to
Yeah.
turn a
Yeah.
giant, it's almost like a cruise ship. Like,
Yeah, it is.
how do you turn that boat around? And maybe it's in a
Yes.
narrow passageway, not a lot of room for error. No one's going to accept a crash from a cruise ship, and they're going to get the captain out of there, at the first sign of danger.
He got dropped onto the Titanic 500 yards from the iceberg, and he's got to figure out how to turn the ship around. That's right.
I like that analogy. So, as it stands now, the upcoming matches for United today in the Cup, EFL Cup against Leicester, then in the league at home against Chelsea on Sunday, Europa League the following Thursday against PAOK. And they haven't won a game in the Europa League, so pressure's on there too.
Yeah, I think they're going to be fine. Well, Leicester, I don't know in the League Cup. I really don't know what Ruud van Nistelrooy is going to do with that lineup today, because that is sort of a fascinating situation. Knowing that you're a lame duck manager, that you're really just there to make sure I don't know the thing doesn't blow up somehow. And Leicester, I mean, Leicester could make a go of this. I mean, Leicester is proving that they have the ability to stay up this season. I think so far it's early, but they're on the right track in terms of staying up. Maybe they make a push for the League Cup, and knocking off United, no matter how bad United is at the moment or where they are, is a nice thing to crow about. In terms of the league, Chelsea's going to wreck them. I mean, I don't see any other result that comes from this moment. And whether Amorim's in place or not, I don't think it matters. Chelsea's going to look at Chelsea right now compared to where United is. Maresca's got them flying. And he's talking about he doesn't have pressure to finish top four at Chelsea, that this is a long-term project. And I guess if ownership, if Todd Boehly has given him, or whoever's in charge, I guess, it's not Boehly, but whoever's in charge at Chelsea is giving him that leeway to talk about a longer-term project. At the same time, if it's not pressurized like that, good, let these guys grow. But they are growing right now, and Chelsea looks like a top four finisher, whereas United is a listing ship.
Yeah, Chelsea gave Liverpool everything they could the other weekend, and they're in flying form. You'd say that they're definitely on the ascent. Can Manchester United say the same? Not at this moment. Luke with another comment. United have spit out and chewed up managers for the last 11 years. Hope it's different, but it may not be. Nothing at this point really says it will be different. I mean, is it? I mean, you got to point the finger at the players. It's above and below the manager. The managers at United have been the middlemen. They got poison in the locker room and in the boardroom.
So a lot of time it was the football leadership was bad, right? It wasn't getting the job done. They had their transfer policy and the decisions they were making in regards to the market were bad. You have the Glazers, who are, absentee, but obviously still sort of the targets of disdain from United fans when things are not going well. You have now the switch, right? The Glazers are still the majority owners, but Ineos has come in and taken a controlling stake. They are now the ones in charge of making decisions, right? It comes to Ratcliffe and the people that they're putting together on that side. But it is very transitional, right? It's still, you talk about turning around a ship. That's what Ineos is trying to do, right? Ultimately, it's down to Ineos and Jim Ratcliffe, and they're the ones trying to turn this thing around. And you can't expect, reasonably, you can't expect it to happen overnight or even in one season. But the problem is that every decision you make now has the potential to reverberate poorly or positively down the line. And I don't think they have a sense yet of what that is, what that looks like. Again, I'll go back to the squad. And I would dare anybody to look at this United squad and think, yeah, they've got the pieces here that if they get the right manager in, they're a top 4 or 5 finisher. I don't see it at this point. I mean, there's some talent there, but the pieces individually don't seem to work. They got a lot of dead weight. If you are dependent on Casemiro at this point, man, I'm sorry. I can't see you winning anything. And I respect the hell out of his career, but he's not that player now.
Yeah, you could maybe say that they're comfortably a top half team without really, endangering yourself of going out into a limb. Top 8. I mean, are they a Conference League team, a Europa League team? They're a middling team in Europa League right now.
Yeah, they are. Well, this is the good shout from Nate, right? At some point, you have to ask why we still talk about Manchester United. What other lower table team gets so much attention? I mean,
that's what I said. Are they still going to be the commercial juggernaut after?
Well, this is the thing. They're the Dallas Cowboys of English football. It doesn't really matter where they are on the table. They're generating the headlines. I made the analogy, and this is for all the old heads out there who watched. For my age, you would have watched the reruns on Nickelodeon or whatever. It's a little Marsha. Like, it's always about Manchester United somehow, even when there are other things happening in the world. So yeah, we should move on. We should be done with United for now until they prove that they deserve our attention. Robert, no more United.
All right, for the sake of everyone's morning, let's move along from Manchester United. That does it for our long balls. And I got to remind you guys, hit us up, like, subscribe, tell all your people, friends, foes, neighbors, acquaintances, like and subscribe. Morning Kick Around is on YouTube Monday, Wednesday, Friday, chopping up the segments on the channel. We are approaching 350. Next big milestone is 500. Push towards that, guys. And you can get a hold of us on social media at mkickaround on X and Instagram, or write us a note, morningkickaround@gmail.com. We're going to take a breath, come right back with Wednesday's Hot Topic. Hot topic for the day, the Ballon d'Or 2024 happened yesterday, and it got a little messy. There was no Lionel Messi in attendance for the first time in quite some time, but it was a messy affair. Rodri came away with the top prize. United States women's national team coach came away with Women's Coach of the Year, but a lot of boycotts. What did you make of all that? The popularity contest of world football.
Yeah, it's not a good look for Real Madrid and for Vinicius Jr. to throw a fit over losing out to a deserving winner. I mean, I'm not sure what the argument here is. Like, hey, Vinicius Jr. was so far and away the best player on the planet over the last year that this is corruption, that it was stolen from him, that Rodri somehow, paid off the voters? Or I just don't know how you make that argument if you're Real Madrid, that you were screwed over by the Ballon d'Or voters. So it just looks like you're throwing a tantrum, that you're a toddler, that you're a baby. And this doesn't work in Vinicius Jr.'s favor. Let me say that. Whether he made the decision not to go or not, in the aftermath of this award being given, I've seen a couple of voters talk about Vinny Jr. not measuring up to the fair play requirement of the Ballon d'Or, which is, come on, let's be honest. That's selectively applied, Robert. There's been plenty of times when the Ballon d'Or winner wasn't somebody you would say, that guy, completely, he's all about fair play. Cristiano Ronaldo, you know him and his reputation for being all about fair play and being a good teammate and being a good opponent. No, come on. This Vinicius Jr. deserved consideration, right? And I think anybody who's selectively applying some sort of fair play criteria to Vinicius Jr. is probably telling on themselves a bit, right? I mean, the man is not allowed to have attitude or not allowed to have personality on the field, because why exactly? Like, he trash talks, and that's bad, while he's getting racially abused by fans all over Spain. He's shown up at the biggest stages. He deserves to be in the conversation. But that being said, Rodri is 100% a deserving winner. In fact, if I had a Ballon d'Or vote, I would have been incredibly torn. It would have been very, very difficult for me to pick between those two players. But it doesn't mean that Vinicius Jr. was robbed. So him not showing, him not posting, Madrid throwing a fit, canceling some sort of broadcast they had planned, which I guess was around the idea that Vinicius Jr. was going to win it. And maybe you do cancel that, but not sending anybody, it rings extremely poorly. And as somebody said, this is why nobody likes Madrid. And this is why nobody likes Real Madrid. They are entitled in a way that only a Madrid fan can feel good about.
Yeah, yeah, that's conflicting. So if you know that you're not going to win, you say, "Well, fine, I'm not going to show up." I mean, I understand that like award shows could probably be long and drawn out and not that exciting, but there's probably a million other people that would die for that invitation to do so. Other notable absentees, Erling Haaland didn't go. And then
No.
also, this is a little bit of a side note. Sorry to Luke, but I did see a report that Manchester United asked for their Ballon d'Or invitees to hop on the plane that Manchester City had chartered for the Manchester City players to go to it, and they said, "Sorry, the plane's full." Sorry, Luke.
Well, I mean, you're asking your city rival for some space on their plane. I feel like you know what the answer is going to be before you even ask. And maybe you have plausible deniability. We didn't send anybody from United because, well, there's no space on the plane.
On
I mean,
City's plane.
I mean, Ineos is obviously like, we got to cut costs. We can't be sending planes to Paris. What are you talking about? This is a tightening the belt situation here at Manchester United. We just fired 300 people at Old Trafford. Like that, I think it would be a bad look to send a plane and spend that money if you really don't got no interest in this, no direct interest in it. I mean, this does set a precedent, though, doesn't it? Right? That this isn't really a world football event. That if you're not winning it, then you're not going. And I don't love UEFA pony shows, dog and pony shows. I don't love FIFA dog and pony shows. This one was relatively inoffensive. Now, I'll admit that I was watching it while I was also doing a radio broadcast, so I wasn't fully engaged. I saw the tribute to Franz Beckenbauer. I saw they brought out George Weah is the one who handed the award to Rodri, which was an interesting inclusion, the only African winner of this award. Another thing in terms of the criteria and how that's applied, it's open to the voters. Of course, it should be on some level, but it's open to the voters. It's like an MVP award, Robert. It's essentially that, right? You're saying, are you the most important player on the best team, or are you the player who had the highest numbers? Like, does it pure numbers that matter? Of course, this gets more complicated because these players are not just representing clubs; they're representing nations, and they're being held accountable for how those nations perform. So Rodri benefits from the fact that City won trophies and Spain won the Euros, whereas Vinny Jr. gets a demerit because Brazil didn't show up in Copa America the way that they would, that would earn him more plaudits and more praise. At the same time, you look at that Brazil team and go, well, it's not just Vinny Jr. Like, there's other stuff going on here. But that's the standard that you are held to if you are Brazil's best player, that you're supposed to carry them to titles.
Yeah, and I guess to the Rodri who won it, I mean, the Spanish team had a great run this year. It was a successful campaign for them, obviously.
I think it helped Rodri too, that he at City he is far from the biggest name and the biggest star, right? It is De Bruyne and Haaland and Foden, and you could go down the list. There's 3 or 4 other guys that probably rate higher. Ruben Diaz. These are bigger names, I think, for a lot of people, or they're more celebrated, I guess is a way to think about them. Yet he was so recognized as a key part of that team, where the attack was, well, Haaland was racking up the numbers. You can kind of say, well, Haaland's benefiting from all these other things, but without Rodri, the whole thing falls apart. Right, and everybody pointed to those win numbers for Manchester City, or the unbeaten run that they had when Rodri was in the lineup, and then obviously the injury, which took him out, and it kind of was like this starkly comparable thing: Rodri in the team, Rodri out of the team. And in Spain, there's another element there too, where there is no overwhelming superstar in that Spanish team that won the Euros this season. Lamine Yamal is great. He turned 17 during the tournament. Nobody's thinking of him carrying Spain to a title. I mean, Alvaro Morata is a nice player, but we know what his limitations are. You can go around the field with Spain and talk about some of the things that they put together a great run, but it wasn't as if one player carried them to that championship. So Rodri becomes the one you can center everything around. I like that we're recognizing a defensive midfielder, though, Robert. I do like that.
That doesn't happen very often. The goals are reward, and the players that have lots of celebrations are often the ones that come home with Ballon d'Or. I do think that, going back to George Weah being the presenter, I still think it's absolutely wild that the son of a Ballon d'Or winner and president of an African country plays for the United States men's national team. That just saying that out loud is just still wild to me.
Yeah.
But there were other absentees and other messy storylines with the event. Most of the female Ballon d'Or nominees were unable to attend because they've scheduled this during the middle of a women's international window. So most of these players, including all the American nominees that didn't include Naomi Girma, which is a whole nother thing, were not able to attend. And Emma Hayes, I think, had to win via Skype or something like that.
Yeah, she's coaching the team right now. Aitana Bonmatí of Barcelona won it for a second consecutive year.
Yep.
Do I have that correct? So two in a row for her. Man, it is tough. This notion that women's football, it should be taken seriously, and that we should be measuring women's players along the same criteria that we measure the men when we hand out awards like this, I think is still tough for a lot of people to wrap their head around.
Especially UEFA and FIFA people.
You can probably unpack why those things are. But I would also say part of the problem here is that I don't think women's football is it's much more spread out. It's much more diffused across different cultures and different continents.
Yeah.
Right. So, when you talk about the Ballon d'Or on the men's side, every single one of those players is playing for a European club. They may not be European, but they are playing for a European club. And they're playing for one of a handful of European clubs. Let's just be honest about it, right? Real Madrid is number one on that list, and then it's City, and then it's, those are where these players who are up for the Ballon d'Or come from, Bayern Munich and Harry Kane and all that stuff. When you talk about the women's game, right, you've got NWSL, you've got a handful of very competitive and very good European teams. You've got a Champions League over there. I think it's sort of natural for all of the European-based writers, all the people in those cultures to think, oh, Europe's where the best football is, period, including in the women's game, which may not be true. But we haven't come to a consensus of how to rank or how to think about women's football, the club game in Europe, how it ties in or doesn't to the NWSL. Opposing calendars is a part of that story too. Lack of competition between those leagues. You don't get a chance to see the champion of the NWSL go up against the top European clubs in a meaningful competition because of geography, because of the divisions in confederations. So it's really one of those things where it's like, does Bonmatí deserve it? Probably. But are we as sure about that as we might be about Rodri, or if Vinny Jr. had won it? I don't know. I don't know.
For context, the female version of the Ballon d'Or award has only been in existence since 2018.
Yeah, it's
and
new.
The only year where there was American in the top 3 vote getters was 2019 when Megan Rapinoe won, and Alex Morgan came in 3rd. Those were the only NWSL top 3 finishers for that. And going back to your point of the top teams not really playing each other in the women's game, we've kind of debated the merit of the Club World Cup on the men's side. There might actually be a little bit more room for that on the women's side.
Possibly.
You would want to see, wouldn't you want to see the NWSL champion play against the Barcelonas and the Leones?
I would say that, again, geography makes it difficult because of travel, the money issues involved, the fixture congestion issues that exist for the women, just like they do for the men, particularly when you're talking about national team programs that are much more used to calling their full teams up all the time, like any window, any opportunity. And we're not playing once or twice, we're playing 3 times in a window to kind of squeeze and maximize. I mean, certainly that's the U.S. women's national team approach to all of this. Yeah, I would love to see that, though. I mean, I certainly think that there is much more of a reason to be excited, as you're saying, about a Women's Club World Cup because it would pull NWSL teams together with the Barcelonas and the Lyons and some of the other teams in Europe that are playing the Super League teams in England than there is on the men's side, where it kind of feels like this is just FIFA's way of honing in or forcing their way in to the money that exists for UEFA when it comes to the Champions League.
And then she had an amazing year, winning the Super League with Chelsea in the spring, and then coming over to the women's national team for the United States and winning the Olympics. Emma Hayes, a worthy winner for Women's Coach of the Year.
Yeah, no doubt about that. 100% deserved. Glad to have her with the U.S. Women's National Team. Glad we have another gold medal for our team, and hopefully, on the march to 2027, it is going well. It is going well. New faces, new names, some good stuff there.
Yeah, a little bit of fact check on myself. We'll have to dig into this more later, but I think Carly Lloyd might have won a Player of the Year award internationally.
There was a Player of the Year award. It just was. I don't think it was tied into the Ballon d'Or, and I really FIFA had one. I mean, there was that weird period where the FIFA Player of the Year and the Ballon d'Or were the same award, but then they were like, "Nah, we don't like this. This is you're getting." You're getting mixing things that aren't working together. I think obviously FIFA wants to own whatever FIFA can own, and the Ballon d'Or, which is a function of that French outlet, was like, no, we don't want you co-opting our history. So we ended up with the split, and I think how many does Marta have? Like how many Women's World Player of the Years does Marta have? A number of them. I don't know how many of them are actually Ballon d'Ors, because, again, I don't think it existed at the time.
She's been honored with the Player of the Year 6 times.
That's right. Yes. The most ever, I believe, is that. And again, FIFA Best Women's Player is different than the Ballon d'Or. So you say Carly Lloyd won one of these. She didn't win a Ballon d'Or. She won a FIFA Women's Player of the Year, Best Player of the Year, whatever they call it, because they like the best. That's their branding. The best.
That's something. To wrap up this long ball, the current women's international window, and where Emma Hayes accepted her award. The U.S. women's finished their international window tonight against Argentina. So if you guys want to help us continue building the show, continue getting more interactions, like and subscribe. Morning Kick Around YouTube channel. Should we just say that? Subscribe, Morning Kick Around on YouTube. We're approaching 350. Need 500 for the next big benchmark with the YouTube algorithm overlords, and then it'll be one step closer to 50,000. Reach out on social media at mkickaround on X and Instagram, and write us a note, morningkickaround@gmail.com. We're going to catch our breath and come back with a hot and heavy culture war here on Morning Kick Around. Today's culture war touches on a couple things that are affecting the current state of club soccer in the United States. A quote, the owners would rather talk to car tires. Sacramento Republic FC owner feuds with fans online. They claim he has had his head turned by owning overseas teams with the MLS bid failed. A lot going on here, Jason. not positive either.
Well, let's first both of us say neither of us are in Sacramento. Neither of us are entrenched in the culture of the Sacramento Republic. I was born in Sacramento. I was raised there for 2 months before I moved on. So I have connections, but they are tenuous to say the least. I own a couple of Sacramento Republic shirts that the clubs kindly sent me. I have over the years many times had an opportunity to talk to people from the Sacramento Republic and sort of dip my toes in those waters. And it's an interesting story, right? You give some context here, Robert. This is a club that launched specifically with the idea of making their way to Major League Soccer, right?
Yeah.
The birth of the club in the lower divisions of American soccer, in USL, was predicated on the idea we're going to be an MLS team one day. That right there sets a bar that if you don't clear it causes a lot of problems down the line. And that's where Sacramento is now, right? They're not an MLS team. It's 2024. They're not an MLS team. And guess what? I haven't heard anything. I'm got my ear to the ground on this. I haven't heard anything about Sacramento being back in the picture for a potential expansion team in MLS. And probably we should stop adding teams anyway, but that's a different question for a different conversation for a different day. But yeah, so Kevin Nagel, right? The guy that owns Sacramento Republic, a guy who did a lot of work to try to get them to MLS that has not come together, a guy who on his own cannot foot the bill for what MLS asks of expansion franchises, right? This is why Meg Whitman at one point was attached to the Sacramento bid. It's why Ron Burkle was at one point attached to the Sacramento bid. Now, both of those individuals, very, very wealthy, decided they didn't want to be involved anymore. They pulled out. They went and did other things. And I think it left Sacramento high and dry. For a while now, though, the idea was, okay, well, we're not going to MLS, but we still want to build a proper stadium. And Sacramento has been, it's why they got on the radar at all for MLS in the first place, Robert, because they had great attendance. But it seems as now Kevin Nagel has a shiny new toy that's attracting his attention or distracting him from Sacramento. He owns 100% of Huddersfield Town, which I believe is a championship side these days. Is that where they're playing their football? Mm-hmm. And according to the fans in Sacramento, with their team limping into the playoffs, in 2024, but limping in, this has led to some tension. All right, I'm going to pull up the screenshots we got here.
They're in League One now, unfortunately, for Huddersfield.
Oh, Huddersfield Town League One. Well, hence the value and the ability of Kevin Nagel to purchase them outright. Then, my mistake. So there was a tweet here announcing a victory or something for Sacramento, getting and obviously off of this fans respond. So this Sacramento Republic fan Matt says pathetic end to the season, limping into the playoffs by winning 2 of the last 10. He then tags Kevin Nagel. I will also point out that here in 2024, Kevin Nagel's handle on Twitter on X still has MLS in it, which I guess you would have to, I don't know how you change things on X anymore. I don't know how that works. But he said, I'd ask Kevin Nagel what he's going to do to fix this, but he'll just say my comment is stupid. And where's the stadium news? Carmichael Dave, who is involved in Kevin Nagel's operations there, sort of a consigliere, I suppose you could argue, with Kevin Nagel in Sacramento. Where's the news he promised about the stadium 6 months ago? Sad to see how they've killed this team. Now, this is going to an extreme on the fans' part, right? This is taking it to, you killed the team, right? This is what fans
finished
do.
fifth. They finished fifth in the West.
Right. So the fans get upset. They don't see this as what they want, which they think the team should be doing better than they are. Even if they do make the playoffs, it's not quite good enough. You killed the team. I will say it is not productive. It's not a good look for Carmichael Dave and Kevin Nagel to take shots at fans or to be mildly
combative.
What's the word?
Combative.
Right.
Or condescending, even.
Condescending. I think in that image, the fans maybe stop being a snarky asshole and tell us what's going on. Then we have a little bit more here. I wanted to get.
There's more.
There's more. Right. So and this again, the Sacramento fan is pointing out that there was a tweet now deleted with Kevin Nagel from Kevin Nagel's account that says, "I won't speak for Kevin," indicating Kevin didn't actually write this tweet. But I'd rather have a convo with a car tire than someone with an intellect that tells himself he doesn't know all of that. Any idea? There was some money in there, or some questions about money and how these things are playing out for Sacramento on the financial front. But the car tire thing, it struck a nerve, right? And again, this is clearly not Kevin Nagel writing this tweet. If it says, I won't speak for Kevin, I think Dave Carmichael or
Has
Carmichael
access to
Dave,
both. Has access to both
he
accounts
did
there.
acknowledge having access to both accounts down the line a little bit in this thread. Look, there are a couple things here. We've touched on these themes before. Multi-club ownership. Now, I think you and I have mostly tackled that issue from this sort of corporatization of the game, right? That people are buying up clubs, linking them all together, putting them into these bigger organizations, and then moving players around and sort of maximizing assets and doing all these very corporate things that feel like it is eating away at the soul of the game. This is a little different, right? In that Kevin Nagel owns both teams, but I don't think it's necessarily being seen as we're putting together Red Bull, we're putting together City Football Group, right? I don't think it's that. What I think but I do think there is a definite question on the part of the Sacramento Republic fans as to whether or not Kevin Nagel has been distracted, pulled away by his Huddersfield Town investment, and now that is allowing Sacramento to suffer, that they are withering on the vine under Kevin Nagel's leadership because he's got this other thing. And I don't know that it even really matters. Unless Sacramento was winning championships, I don't know that it would really make a difference. The fans would still feel this way. Now, the stadium thing is another question here, because it definitely feels like Sacramento is treading water now rather than moving forward, Robert. And I'm curious what you think about this, because this is, again, the difficult spot that lower division teams in America find themselves. If you no longer have that carrot that you're going for in Major League Soccer, if Sacramento's off the board as a potential expansion team, how do they keep up the momentum? How do they keep things moving forward, not just in terms of getting fans through the door or winning soccer matches, but in terms of putting the infrastructure together that's going to make the fans feel like this is a real thing I can attach myself to?
Yeah, if I was a Sacramento Republic supporter, I would feel a little bit nervous about the future of my team. I mean, and it also, this whole story speaks to the merit of what is the second division in America. So
Yeah.
if we're not moving up, if there isn't someplace else to take this thing, what are we doing here? Really, it kind of cuts to the core. And if Sacramento Republic are due to build a stadium, it doesn't bode well that there's investment going elsewhere. And so if one man doesn't have enough money to get the team into Major League Soccer, is he going to have enough money to build a stadium? And he's already buying other things. It's like if I was owed money, like Jason, if you owed me $100, and I was asking about it, and you're like, "Oh, I got it," and then I see you with the freshest starter jacket the next day.
Oh my gosh,
I would be a little bit worried that I wasn't gonna get my $100.
Right? Yes. How am I buying that other thing when I don't have the money to pay you back? Reportedly, I see. You know,
I'd be nervous.
You can Google a little bit and find the information about the stadium plan in Sacramento. It's got its own Wikipedia page. The Rail Yard Stadium is a planned 21,000-seat soccer-specific stadium to be built in Sacramento, California. Now, this goes back, 2012, 2011, 2012?
At least.
They announced the downsizing of the design because of it looked clear that they wouldn't be going to Major League Soccer. I mean, everything is just kind of like, again, it's at a standstill. And if there weren't promises made, right, this is the question. Should Kevin Nagel or anybody, again, after launching the club with the goal of making Major League Soccer, are they now supposed to tell their fans, hey, guess what? We're not going to MLS. And because we're not going to MLS, we're not building a stadium. And so this is just what it is, right? Is that the right approach to this, Robert? Or is it better to say we're trying to do these things and then go quiet when nothing moves forward? Because in those tweets that we shared, there was a little bit of, what do you want us to do? There's nothing to talk about right now. What do you want us to do? And again, does it necessarily follow? Is it 100% clear that Huddersfield Town is taking resources away from Sacramento and making the Republic worse because Kevin Nagel is shifting his attention to England? I don't know that.
Yeah, one of the things that was in the list of concerns in the Reddit thread from the Sacramento Republic fans is the investments. Like, so if we're not going to make it to MLS, let's be the signature club
Right.
in the USL Championship.
Right.
And any team at any league at any level is not a cheap endeavor. Like, I'm sure that they're going to want to elevate Huddersfield and get them up to the championship or beyond. But here in Sacramento, here, United States wise, yeah, so you need money to get better players, to improve your stadium and all that. And that just doesn't seem like that doesn't even seem feasible unless there's, maybe some plans to sell now that MLS is not evident. But definitely seems like a very tenuous situation. And I'm still interested. We might dip in the future. It's like the teams that are the signature clubs in USL Championship, like the
Right.
Louisvilles and whatnot. Like, how do they feel about being the signature team? Do they feel merited in that?
Yeah, I mean, again, we'll come back to without promotion and relegation, and I think it'd be wrong to say the reason to institute pro rel is because of this problem, right? But of course, obviously, pro rel would solve this problem on some level because it incentivizes nominally owners to put resources into a team to make the next level. Now, there's always that danger of going back down, and I'm not sure exactly how that would impact in this country in particular, with sort of the business of soccer and sort of how dicey it can be sometimes, what that would mean. But without promotion and relegation, right? If this is just not going to happen, if you're just being sort of realistic about it, whether you want to advocate for pro rel, be my guest. But if this is the way things are, and we've got a second division and a third division and multiple third divisions, what is their role? Are they sort of minor league soccer, which is a mentality, right? Like, I went to a lot of minor league baseball games as a kid. I loved it. I, as a kid, cared very much if my team won. I'm not so sure the adults who went to those games were really like, go Shreveport Captains. We're desperate to win the title this year. It was a nice night out, right?
Yeah.
It was an event. You take your kids, you eat the ice cream out of the little baseball helmet. That was my favorite thing. Soccer can kind of be the same thing, right? And MLS was marketed that way for a long time. Like, it's not the top level of sports in America, but it's a good night out for the family, and it doesn't cost you a ton of money. We're beyond that with MLS. But now the second and third division have to figure out what that means. How to exist in this sort of environment when that possibility of going up a level doesn't exist. And I don't know. I mean, I can't tell you that I have any. Look, it seems to be working in Louisville. Like, you have to get over yourself as a fan and as a club, and accept that you're not going to be major league, right? That's a thing. And I think Sacramento is a tweener city in that way. It's the capital of California. They've got an NBA team. They've flirted with other things in the past. And I think there's this sense that we're a major league city. We're just being held down. And if that's the way that you think about the team as well, then you're never going to be satisfied with being a second division team. And maybe that's where Kevin Nagel is, even if some of these fans are clearly okay with their team being a USL championship side, as long as they're going after things in the USL championship.
Yeah, and I think, like many things, these things can be handled better with better communication. I mean, if Nagel, I mean, granted, don't chirp your fans. Like,
Don't chirp
maybe if you
don't
think,
clap
maybe even
back at your fans. Come
maybe
on,
even you
don't do
think
that.
the fans are out of pocket for tagging you or this or that, or saying you're killing the team and you don't agree. Maybe, just take that in stride and, look past that. But
Well, I
maybe
mean,
communication.
there's a reason why Merritt Paulson is again not on X after the 16 times that this kind of thing has happened before. Like, finally somebody was like, Merritt, stop it. Enough already. Enough.
Yeah. I mean, like, fan is literally an abbreviation for fanatic, and you can't reason with fanatics. That's the whole origin of the word, is they're
Yes.
just, out of their mind for a specific thing. So you can't do that. But communication, would be important. Obviously, there's nothing. There may not be anything to report that's encouraging on the stadium front, but they were also talking about how there was new security at the stadium being instituted that wasn't really communicated, like kind of limiting what fans can bring in, and also the facilities in the parking lot where the supporters groups could do their tailgates was changed like the day before the first game of the season, and just that sort of things. Like even like the simple things, just being respectful and communicating things, even if it's bad news, there's way to present that in a respectful manner.
Yes. Yeah, I think they have bottled this. They have botched it. They have fumbled a goodwill in a way that seems idiotic, right? It's self-inflicted. Right? I'm not saying that everybody would be happy if Kevin Nagel was more respectful to the fans or if they had done a better job of communicating some of these things. And by the way, we on some of that what you just mentioned, Robert, that is one side, one view of how things have gone down, right? And I don't and this is what I was the disclaimer at the top of this was we're not in Sacramento, we're not entrenched in this. We don't know if there was an attempt to communicate things, but some people missed it. We don't know if there was really a pulling out of the rug from underneath the supporters or if they were just ready to be hostile, because that certainly can happen. People who have a vested interest, who are fanatics, as you said, emotion rides high, and it's like, oh, well, they did us wrong. When it's like, no, everything here was pretty well explained and handled in a decent manner. You just are looking for a reason to be mad because of whatever. Your team's not winning the way you want them to, or your owner bought another club and you're jealous of that. I don't know. I mean, again, I'm not throwing stones at Sacramento Republic fans. It tends to be that owners are the ones in the wrong here because they have the power, they have the money, right? They have the bully pulpit. And it certainly feels like Kevin Nagel and his advisor, whoever he is, Carmichael Dave, could have done a better job of managing their relationship with fans online. It is just ridiculous that anybody in that position would jump into somebody's mention and be clapping back like that. Just ridiculous.
The USL Championship playoffs kick off this weekend. Sacramento Republic, with their fifth place finish, got an away game in the first round. They will be visiting the Las Vegas Lights on Friday night. Former assistant coach of Sacramento Republic, now the head coach of Detroit City FC, Danny Dicchio, will be leading the way for DCFC's first ever home game in the playoffs this weekend. So USL Championship reaching the playoff stage.
Nice.
Amidst this tumult in Sacramento.
I wonder how Lights fans feel. Just be curious. Joey Batista in charge, the owner of that. Anyway, it's a USL Championship. Fascinating stuff. Fascinating, Robert.
Las Vegas Lights, I don't think they're dropping cash from choppers anymore, so I haven't heard quite as much from Las Vegas.
Yeah, they're not doing that stuff. There's no more pool side. I don't know. There's no more pitch side waiting
tubs.
pools. No, they were waiting pools. That was it was very minor league baseball antics. It was Bill Veeck kind of stuff out there in Vegas. Yeah.
Thanks everyone for the comments. One more from Mike Thomas. People that can't afford a single club, buying other clubs just doesn't sit well, and that's very agreeable there. If you guys want us to continue and grow and make the show even better and better, like and subscribe to Morning Kick Around on YouTube. We're approaching 350, looking for 500. That's the first real benchmark for the YouTube algorithm overlords. And we're going to continue pushing on there, trying to get up to 50,000 and make Morning Kick Around the biggest soccer show in the United States.
Share the show, share the clips that we put up on the channel. I mean, we take the live show and we cut it up for you, bite-sized pieces, so that you can share them. Do that. That helps us out a lot. Really appreciate it.
All right, thanks guys for joining us. We will be back Friday morning for more Morning Kick Around. Until then, enjoy your soccer.